Good morning Year 7 and welcome to today's maths lesson. Here's a quick starter for you. Can you find for me a half of 12? Can you find 50% of 120? Can you then expand the bracket 3 lots of x take away 2? And then can you use that to solve the equation 3 lots of x take away 2 equals 18? Pause the video and have a go at those questions in your light blue books now please. Right, let's go through the answers. So to find half of 12, I need to do 12 divided by 2, which would give me 6. To find 50% of 120, we do it in exactly the same way. We need to do 120 divided by 2, because 50% is the same as a half. So that gives me 60. Expanding my bracket, I'm going to draw out my grid to start off with. I've got 3 lots of x take away 2. 3 times x is what, Jake? 3x, lovely. Barbara, 3 times negative 2? Negative 6, very wise. So that gives me 3x take away 6. And then I asked you to use your answer in this question to help you solve the last one. So we know we expand this bracket and we get 3x subtract 6, and we know that's equal to 18. We want to get x on its own, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add 6 to both sides of my equation. That leaves me with just 3x on this side and 24 on the other side. And then to get x on its own, I need to divide both sides by 3, which gives me x is equal to 8. Lovely stuff. So today's lesson, the first thing I'd like you to do, in your light blue books, can you copy out the bar model that we had in our previous lessons? The top number is going to be 200, so 100% of your number is 200. And then can you fill in the parts of the bar? For example, if 100% of 200 is 200, 50% is going to be 100. So each of these parts is going to be worth 100. And therefore 25% is going to be worth 50, etc., etc. Pause the video and have a go at filling out that bar model exactly the same way in your light blue books now, please. If you're confident, have a go at my 3 extension questions afterwards, please. Pause the video and have a go at that now. And here's the bar model fully filled out. All the different percentages are in there. You need to have this in your light blue books because we're going to use it later. I asked you as an extension question, what percentage of 200 is 22? Well, to make 22, I needed one of my yellow boxes, which was 10%, and one of my little blue boxes, which was my 2, and that gave me 11%. I asked, what percentage of 200 is 222? Well, to make 222, I needed my big purple box to give me 200. I needed one of my little yellow boxes, which gave me 20, and one of my little blue boxes, which gave me 2. So altogether, I had 100% plus another 10%, plus another 1%, so I was looking for 111% for that one. And for the last question, I asked, what percentage of 200 is 178? Well done if you got that right. I was looking for 89%. Right, today's lesson we're going to move on to increasing and decreasing numbers by a percentage. So to start off, I'm going to do an example, and then you're going to do an example on your mini whiteboard or in your light blue books. So here's my bar, and this is 100%. What would my bar look like with an increase of 10%? Well, to increase by 10%, we'd start off with this 100%, and I'd just add on that 10%. So altogether, I'd have 110%. Nice and straightforward to start with. What would the bar look like with a decrease of 10%? Well, this time I'd start off with my 100%. I'd need to take away my 10%. So the percentage I'd have left over, which I'm going to show in this box here, would be what, Ludo? 90%. Brilliant. I've taken my 100%, taken off that 10%, which has left me with 90%. In your light blue books, Year 7, please can you show me the bar with an increase of 20% and a decrease of 20%. Pause the video and complete that now, please. And this is what your bars should have looked like. With an increase of 20%, we had 100%, and we added on a 20%, which gave us 120% altogether. For a decrease of 20%, we had our 100% bar, we took off that 20%, which just left us with 80% left over. Over to you again in your light blue books. Can you show me the bar with an increase of 15%? And what would it look like with a decrease of 15%? Pause the video, have a go at that now, please. And these are the answers. With an increase of 15%, we had 100% and we added on a 15%, which gave us 115% altogether. And for a decrease of 15%, we had 100%, took off that 15%, which left us with 85%. All straightforward so far. We're going to use this now. So the bar model we did at the beginning of the lesson, I want you to turn back to it and have a look. Let's use this bar model to work out some percentages. If I want to find 135% of 200, I need 100%. I need 30%, which would be 3 lots of my 10%. 1, 2, 3. And I'd need a 5%. There it is. So altogether I've got 270. So 135% of 200 is 270. If I wanted to find 65% of 200, this time I'll need a 50%, plus another 10%, that gives me 60%, plus another 5%. So altogether this time I've got 130. Over to you, Year 7. In your light blue books, please can you find for me 100% of 200, 115% of 200, 85% of 200, and then if you're confident, can you find 100% of 200, increase 200 by 15%, and decrease it by 15%. Pause the video and have a go at this in your light blue books now, please. Right, let's look at the answers. So 100% of 200 is just 200. 115%, we'd need the 100% plus a 10% plus a 5%, which would give you 230. And for 85%, I could make that from 50%, 3 lots of 10% and a 5%, which would give me 170. If you did the second lot of questions, you'll notice the answers are exactly the same. Because if I increase something by 15%, I've now got 115% of it. And if I decrease it by 15%, that leaves me with 85%. Let's use that now. In your dark blue books, can you write me the title Increase, Decrease by a Percentage? And then pens down, eyes on me, I'm going to do an example and then you're going to do an example. So to start us off, I want to increase 40 by 10%. Here's 40 and that's 100%. If I'm increasing it by 10%, I need my 40, that's my 100%, and I now need to add on another 10%. So altogether, I've now got 110%. But what's my 10% worth? Well, to work out what 10% of 40 is, we need to do 40 divided by 10, which gives me 4. So overall, after my increase of 10% to give me 110%, I've now got 44. 100% plus an extra 10%. Over to you, Year 7, in your dark blue books. Can you have a go at this example for me, please? Pause the video and complete that now. Alright, George, help me out. I want to increase 90 by 10%, so I need 100% of 90, and I need to add on another 10%. Let's borrow this box. George, what's 10% of 90 going to be? Great, 9. We're just doing 90 divided by 10, which equals 9. So all together, I've now got 110%, and 110%, or increasing by 10%, is going to give me 99. 90 plus 9. Let's do another example. Pens down, watching me. I want to increase 40 by 15%. So this time, I want my 100%. I want to add on my 10% and add on my 5%. So this bit here is 10%, this is 5%, and altogether I'm now left with 115%. But how much is the 10% and the 5% going to be worth? To work out 10%, we did 40 divided by 10, which gave us 4. To work out 5%, I can just divide that by 2, which gives me 2. So my 10% was worth 4, my 5% was worth 2. Altogether I've got 40, 4, 5, 46. Over to you, Year 7, in your dark blue books. Can you increase 90 by 15% for me? Pause the video and complete that now. Right, let's go through the answer. This time I'm going to need 100% plus a 10% plus a 5%. We know that 10% was equal to 9 from our previous example. We can work out 5% by dividing that by 2, which gives us 4.5. So this little box is worth 9. This guy here is worth 4.5. So altogether I've got 90 plus 9 plus 4.5, which gives me 103.5. Look out for those decimals, you can get a decimal answer. Okay, Year 7, mini whiteboards for me. Increase 70 by 10%. Pause the video if you need, off you go. Okay, increasing 70 by 10% means I need 100% plus an extra 10%. We work out 10% by doing 70 divided by 10, which gives me 7. So increasing adds on an extra 7, so you should have got 77. Next up, increase 70 by 5% for me. Pause the video if you need. Rightio, we know 10% is worth 7. Robert, what's 5% worth? Half of that, so 3.5. So we're adding on 5%, which gives me 73.5. How about now? Pause the video, have a little think. Right, this time we need to add on a 10% and a 5%. We know the 10% was worth 7. The 5% was worth 3.5. So altogether I've got 80.5. 70 plus 7 plus 3.5. How about now? Pause the video, have a little think on your mini whiteboards or in your light blue books. How good are you? Can you increase 70 by 115% for me? Right, the method doesn't change just because we're increasing by 115%. We start with our 100%. This time we're increasing by 100%. And then on top of that, we're increasing by another 10% and another 5%. Our 10% was worth 7. Our 5% was worth 3.5. So altogether this time I've got 70 plus 70, which is 140, plus 7, 147, plus 3.5, 150.5. Well done if you got that right. That's when the bar model comes in handy. Okay, Year 7, please pause the video for 10 to 15 minutes. Have a go at these questions in your light blue books for me, please. And these are the answers. Please check your work and see how you did. Right, so far we've been looking at increasing by a percentage. Let's move on to decrease. So back into your dark blue books for me. I'm going to start off with an example and then you're going to do one. I've been asked to decrease 40 by 10%. So what's my bar model going to look like now? I want to get rid of this 10%, so I'm going to leave it as red. And I want to be left with the rest of my bar. So we're getting rid of this 10%. 10% of 40 is equal to 40 divided by 10, just as we did before, which is 4. So this time when I'm decreasing by 10%, I'm getting rid of this 4. Goodbye. Which leaves me with 90%. So to work out what the rest of the bar is worth, it's going to be 40, take away the 4, which leaves me with 36. So the answer I'm looking for is 36. Over to you, Year 7, in your dark blue books. Can you have a go at this example for me? Pause the video, have a little think in your dark blue books now. Right, let's go through it. Exactly the same way. We're getting rid of this 10%. Goodbye. And the percentage we've got left is our 90%. 10% of 90 is 90 divided by 10, which is 9. So we're getting rid of that 9. The bit that's left is 90, subtract the 9, which gives me 81. Let's do another example. I'm going to go through this one and then you're going to do a similar one in your dark blue books, so watching me for now. This time I want to decrease 40 by 35%. So I want to get rid of a little bit more this time, a 35%, which is going to leave me with what percentage, Drew, if I've taken away 35%? Great, 65% is left. We're getting rid of this 35% this time. How can I work out what 35% is? Well, I can work out what 10% was. That was 4. I can work out what 5% was by dividing that by 2, which gives me 2. So 35% is going to be 10% plus 10% plus 10% plus 5%, which is 14. Here's my 14. I'm getting rid of it this time. So the bit that's left is 40, take away 14, which leaves me with 26. Over to you, Year 7, in your dark blue books. Can you decrease 90 by 35% for me in exactly the same way? Pause the video, off you go. Right, let's go through it. This time we are getting rid of 35% in exactly the same way. There's my 35%. The bit that's left is going to be 65% again. What's that 65% going to be worth? Well, 10% of 90 is 9. 5% was 4.5. So 35% is 9 plus 9 plus 9 plus 4.5, which gives me 18, 27, 31.5. We're getting rid of that 31.5, which leaves me with 90, take away 31.5, which is what, Lucy? 90 take away 31.5. 58.5. Great, thanks Lucy. So the correct answer was 58.5. Over to you, Year 7, in your light blue books. Pause the video and spend about 10 minutes on these questions. If you're less confident, have a go at the green ones. If you're more confident, have a go at the red questions for me. And these are the answers. Please check your work and see how you did. As an extension task, if you're confident, please have a go at this percentage change code breaker. Each of the answers will link up to a letter, and the answers will reveal what I thought of the documentary I watched on shipbuilding. It's a hilarious joke, Year 7, it always is. Pause the video for 5 to 10 minutes and have a go at those for me, please. And these are the answers. Please check your work and see how you did. And for the last part of the lesson, test your knowledge. Can you have a go at these questions for me? Pause the video and answer the questions in your light blue book. Okay, the answers I was looking for were 8.4, 4.2, 2.1, £98.70, and the sale price of the coat was 55.25. Thanks very much for listening, Year 7. Head over to Google Classroom and submit my exit ticket. Thanks and goodbye.